And we are so delighted to be able to welcome you in on a very busy Thursday. We've got a terrific lineup on tap this time. Thanks for making us a part of your day. It's back to normal today for Washington area commuters, one day after that unusual decision by Metro to close the subway. Metro repair crews found more than a dozen cables that needed replacing. Proof agency brass say that their decision, while difficult, was the right one. Still, the episode is further proof that Metro remains an agency in trouble. Robert McCartney is senior regional correspondent for The Washington Post. It's always great to have you here. Appreciate you being here today. And
my pleasure.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day to you.
It's a delight to have you here. What an amazing thing to have
remarkable,
Metro,
extraordinary, unprecedented.
To have them have this conference call. So of course there was an incident early in the week that.
Early Monday.
I'm trying to come up with a better word for reignited, but whatever the concern. So they have people get to work, and then decide, okay, it's safe to bring you home, but we're in such a crisis moment that we're not going to run the Metro for a day.
They shut it down
the following
for
day.
A day. Yeah, well,
it's amazing.
It is remarkable. It's never happened before at Metro. It's not clear that it's ever happened for safety reasons at any other major metro system in the United States. But they had this fire early Monday near McPherson Square Station, and it was caused by malfunctioning electrical cables, the power cables that power the subway trains. And whatever happened there was very similar to what had caused the deadly fire in January 2015 near L'Enfant Plaza on the Yellow Line. And so Paul Wiedefeld, the new general manager of Metro, said we can't risk running the trains given that there's a risk that this could happen again and spew smoke out and kill someone or injure someone. It's happened before. There's every reason to think that it could happen again. And based on what they found when they did the searches, there were 3 places where they found equipment that was so badly in need of repair that had they known it, they would have not run trains there. So they found 3 places where there was a serious risk in doing these checks. So I think that shows that, I think certainly they would argue, I think a lot of people would argue that it was the right decision based on what they found.
The alternative was doing the inspections and repairs while still running trains, picking different areas each day and single tracking around the places where the humans would be with their equipment,
right,
doing the inspection, and where they found problems, doing the repair work. That would have taken days, during which there would have been exposure, there would have been risk, something bad could have happened,
right.
And so they decided it's amazing, it's like it's going to be really an inconvenience for the region to do it where we just shut the system down the way they did it, but the alternative from a safety and maybe legal sense was
that's what they considered. No, in the discussion when Paul Wiedefeld recommended that they do it immediately. And then there was a discussion, on the board. There was a conference call starting at 2 p.m. on Wednesday, and on Tuesday, Tuesday afternoon, and the discussion on the board was that are there other alternatives? Could we wait till the weekend? Mm-hmm. Could we spread it out over several days, as you suggest? And Jack Evans, the chairman of the board, said in that, and other people said, well, if you do that, if you basically keep running this thing, knowing what we know,
and he's an attorney,
then we would have to make a public announcement saying there's a risk. We can't guarantee the safety. And that would have been extremely awkward to basically say, okay, we're going to leave it open because we don't want to have to shut it down and inconvenience everyone, but we have to tell you up front that we can't guarantee that you won't die in a smoke incident. So that would have been very awkward, obviously, very uncomfortable. Plus, there would have been legal issues, and Evans made this point in the conference call as well, that all you board members could be liable to be sued if anything went wrong. So people said, okay, bite the bullet. I believe Wiedefeld technically had the right as CEO to do it on his own, but he got board support, and there was support. There was a consensus. There was some pushback, but there was a consensus in favor of it, given those other issues.
And there was a consensus beyond the conference call, which I want to talk about in a moment. But first, let's open the phone lines, because whatever thoughts you might have about this situation, the unusual situation we've dealt with Metro this week, and your thoughts about the agency overall. We very much want to include you in the conversation as we continue to talk today with our friend Robert McCartney of the Washington Post. Phone lines open here for those of you watching in the 11 a.m. hour. That's when we can and do take calls. Join in at 703-387-1020. That's our number. We'll go to the phones as your calls come in. Again, 703-387-1020. Dial now. I look forward to speaking with you. I thought it was interesting, Bob, and you probably did too, in the hour or so, 2 hours maybe, after the announcement, the extraordinary announcement that there would be no Metro service for a minimum of 29 hours,
Yeah,
I guess.
24 hours plus the 5 it would usually be closed.
Be closed,
yeah.
right, perfect. So we saw announcements, we saw a series of press releases from, I think, just about all of the region's leaders saying, this is different, this is going to be inconvenient, but we understand and support why the agency is doing what they're doing.
What you got was...
It felt a little orchestrated, but not to diminish
I don't think it was orchestrated.
Not to diminish it in terms of the support Metro needed at that critical moment.
Yeah, I don't think it could have been orchestrated because everybody got notified so late. In fact, the Mayor Muriel Bowser's administration was very annoyed at how late they got informed about it, and they were still complaining yesterday that that they didn't really understand the reasons that had not been explained to them fully for such a drastic action. That was the word they used.
And she's a former
board member, yeah. But I think what you got a two-pronged response from the region's elected officials and politicians, a two-pronged response. The first prong was, of course, safety is paramount. If you can't guarantee the safety, then we support you. It's the right thing to do. And then the next breath they said, it is maddening, it's infuriating, it's so frustrating that Metro has deteriorated so much over the years that we have to take such drastic action. So there was the support, kind of, reluctant but understanding support for the need to put safety first. At the same time, real frustration and disappointment that Metro's gotten in such bad shape.
Is there an answer to the question, why didn't all this happen right after the L'Enfant incident, when it could have been done on the weekends, at night, overnight? It could have been done theoretically with no disruption, or minimal disruption to the public.
Because something was wrong with the inspection. Something apparently was wrong with the inspections that were done after the L'Enfant Plaza Yellow Line accident. In other words, there's 600 jumper cables. There's the third rail which carries the power. There are these 600 what they call jumper cables, which basically there are gaps in the third rail for various reasons, for doors, for intersections, for various things. There's gaps between these third rails. And the jumper cables are electric cables that carry the electric power from one end of the third rail to the start of the next third rail.
Keeping the circuit intact.
Keeping the circuit intact, right. And there's two parts to it, basically. There's the cable itself, and then there's the connectors that connect, which are sort of L-shaped things. They're shaped like hair dryers, and they connect the cable to the rail. So there were 600 of these. One of them melted down and caused a smoke incident that killed someone and sent scores to the hospital in the L'Enfant Plaza incident 14 months ago, all right? They were all inspected after that. All 600 of them were inspected after that. But then it happened again. 125 were fixed, by the way, after the L'Enfant Plaza incident. 125 of the 600 were fixed. But they were all inspected. But then one of them, the same thing happened Monday morning. And that one had been inspected and had been passed, had been approved. So Wiedefeld and the board are sitting there and they're saying, we inspected all these and it wasn't good enough. And they don't know, or at least they didn't know yesterday, whether the inspections had been conducted inadequately, or if whatever the problem was they didn't know to look for it, or if the problem had arisen after the inspection, in which case the inspections weren't being done often enough. And some of the board members are saying, why didn't you have the inspections every month or every 3 months? Why did you wait so long? And the answer came back, well, it's protocol. It's protocol. They were supposed to wait till June. The next inspections were going to be in June. Well, clearly we discovered yesterday that waiting till June wasn't soon enough.
You wonder whether Paul Wiedefeld, who is not from the Metro culture, coming in from the outside, new to the organization, but at the top of the organizational chart, you wonder, does he have faith? Could he possibly have faith? And I don't mean this to disparage the people who work for Metro, although obviously some elected leaders have said that this is an agency
they don't
that
have
needs,
faith. Yeah,
correct. But I'm not trying to say if you work for Metro you're a bum. The point being, is it possible Paul Wiedefeld is uncertain of the people on his team?
I was told by a senior Metro official who spoke on condition of anonymity that he could not trust all the people who were reporting to him. He's only been there since November. What the people, at least a lot of the people who are giving him information are the same people who were giving information to the last regime. He has to figure out whom to trust and whom he can't trust, basically. I think that's part of the situation he's in. And he's been pretty diplomatic about this. He has said that he definitely wants Metro to get the message that safety comes first, and that this is a really good example of him putting safety first regardless of the consequences.
Right.
But he has not said, although he's hinted, that he doesn't have confidence in certainly the inspections that were done before.
In the meantime, it was it was a very unusual day here in the Washington region. For some people, the plan B was not that onerous. But for a lot of people with long distances to travel, maybe not having a car, whatever, no place to park, depending on the job site situation, and think about all the tourists. Think about any outside group that might have been at a suburban hotel or whatever the particulars of their trip was. If you were thinking, we're going to be in Washington, it's a great time of year to be there, we've got a list of things we want to do, and we're going to do it all by Metro because everyone says, don't drive in Washington, take the Metro. You were, based on the challenge and the lack of obvious alternatives, it was just all around. It was a crazy day.
No, it was wild. I mean, it was very inconvenient for a lot of people. I think that people who could stay home, a lot of people did stay home and did telework. I think that we saw that with the snow day, with the snow shutdown that happened in January, and I think we saw it again. A lot of people can't telework. Restaurant workers, hotel workers, a lot of people, hospital workers, they have to be there. So anybody who relied on transit, they had to use buses, they had to pay for taxis or Uber fares. It was difficult for a lot of people. Get rides. I think parking was a real issue for a lot of people.
Yes.
We do not know yet. I don't think we have enough data yet to know overall what the impact was. But I think the initial feeling was that it wasn't as bad as it could have been, that there were some corridors that were just insanely crowded, like apparently coming up north on 395 was insanely crowded. But a lot of other ones, it was fairly light. People stayed home, people found other alternatives, and it wasn't so bad. So people did adapt, and a lot of people rode bikes. The weather made it, but good for you. Weather made it possible. But it was an interesting experiment, you could say, and like what happens when Metro shuts down.
Washington Post senior regional correspondent Robert McCartney. Bob, always great having you here. Thank you
very
much for your time. Talking to you again very soon. Happy St. Patrick's Day. We'll take a break here. Former prosecutor Glenn Ivey is on deck. We'll talk with him as News Talk rolls on.